Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be practicing radio and movement for the Roboticon challenge for 2024. In the previous video, we made this program right here. All this program is it is our basic line following code inside of another if statement. This if statement just checks if button A is pressed. If it is, the car is going to stop. If it isn't, the car will follow a line. Now, if you made this code and tested it out, you would have noticed that there is one main problem, and that is we have to push button A on the car itself. So if your car is following a line, you have to run after it, pick it up, and push button A. This kind of defeats the point of the whole thing. We want to be able to stop the car whenever we want without going and physically picking it up. To do this, we are going to add a second microbit, which is going to connect to the microbit car via radio communication, and then we are going to use that microbit to stop and start our line following. To do this, we are going to need two separate pieces of code, one for the car and one for the second microbit. So let's open a fresh MakeCode program and let's program our second microbit. Whenever we're using radio, the first thing we need to do is radio set group. This number here doesn't really matter as long as the number is the same on both of your programs. After that, I'm going to go into my logic tab and I'm going to take an if then else block out. Then in here, I am going to go to input and take out a button A pressed block and place it in the top. Then I'm going to go to radio and I'm going to take out a radio send string block and place it over here and change this to stop. Then I'm going to duplicate, place in my else and change this to go. So now whenever I push my button A, it is going to send the string stop onto whichever microbit is on the same radio group and is in range. Then, if button A isn't being pressed, it is going to send a go string to the same microbits. This is the full code for the second microbit, so we can jump on over to this code. This is the full program for the second microbit, so let's head on over to our Apprentice car code and make a couple changes. The first thing we need to do is radio set group to the same number as your previous program. Then I'm going to take this full if statement out of my forever block and I'm going to add a on radio received block, placing my if statement into that block. Then I'm going to get rid of button A pressed and I'm going to go back to logic. I am going to take this comparison block over here that is going to compare two different strings rather than two different numbers. I'm going to place that in my if statement and then I'm going to drag this received string block into the first open space. Now, if I make this over here the exact same string as I did in my previous code, when I push button A on the other microbit, it is going to send a string to this microbit that says stop. That is going to make this check true and the car will stop. If button A isn't being pressed, the string will be go, which is not the same as stop, so our car will simply follow a line. Remember that strings are case sensitive, so if you use capitals in one, you have to use capitals in the other. They must look exactly the same. No spaces, no capitals, no special letters. This is the easiest way to make sure that your strings will be exactly the same. Now all that's left to do is to upload our two pieces of code to our two microbits and test it out. In front of me, I have my Apprentice car with our updated program on it. As you can see, it is currently following a line just like we expected. Here, I have my second microbit with the very simple radio code on it. And as we can see, if I push and hold button A, my car will stop moving. As soon as I let go of button A, it will carry on moving. So now I have full control over my car, when it goes and when it stops. One extra note, if I unplug this microbit here, you'll see that this car, it kind of stops following the line, but if I quickly just switch it off and back on again, you'll see that it no longer moves. If we go back to our code, I can quickly explain why this happens. If we have a look at this program here, you'll see that our whole piece of code is inside this on radio received block. Now this block will only run if our microbit receives a string. Right now, because our second microbit is not plugged in, there is no radio communication happening, which means this microbit is not getting a string, which means that this code won't run. As soon as I plug in this microbit, we just need to give it a second and our car will start to follow the line again. As soon as we unplug it, it won't necessarily stop, it will just run the last piece of code indefinitely, but it won't follow the line. So you'll need to either reset everything or plug this microbit back in, or else your car won't work. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Good luck with your radio and movement. I'll see you next time for another video. Goodbye.